how did you find out that the victim was leaving town the following day?
I can't remember that good.
Was it from a blog?
Objection, Your Honor. Leading.
It's not leading, Your Honor. Was it from a blog?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what blog was that?
The blonde was Wendy.
No.
Do you want the culpable parties held accountable for murdering the father of your children?
Absolutely. I'm grateful they're already in jail.
But not if it's your family.
It's not my family.
I mean, somebody hired them, right?
Not necessarily.
Somebody paid them.
I learned something this morning.
Yeah, me too. You didn't want them held accountable if it was your family members. Didn't you tell law enforcement that?
That's not what I told law enforcement.
What did you tell law enforcement?
I told them that the person who did this should be held responsible and that I had nothing to do with it.
Page 122, lines 7 through 12. If somebody tried to kill my ex-husband, they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. The investigator says regardless of who it is, and your answer is, I mean, it would be different if I thought it were my brother.
But I don't think it was my family, is what I said.
Different now, isn't it?
No, it's not different. That's exactly
Different
what I
today,
said
isn't
right
it?
here. No, that's not
No
right.
further questions.
You are listening to the Roberta Glass True Crime Report, putting the true back in true crime. From New York City, Roberta Glass is now on the record.
Okay, how is everybody? Thanks so much for your patience. It feels a little weird talking to you on a Tuesday, but sometimes that's going to happen. I just had to prepare, had a lot of stuff to prepare for today, and this is one of two shows I'm doing. So if people want to stick around at 7:30 Eastern, I'm also doing another episode on Helena Hutchins and Joel Souza, the victims of the Rush shooting, and Hannah Gutierrez Reed's trial. I'm going to be talking about that. And boy, is a lot of weird, thanks to True Crime Circus, a lot of weird tapes are coming out. Very interesting trial. So it's been a minute and a half since we talked about Wendy Adelson and her infamous banana bread story. And I got a communication from a listener, Starkwork, and she made the best point. And it's something we all missed. Now, so she writes, I was listening to one of your older shows and it hit me. How could Wendy say Donna baked him banana bread? And I'll leave it on a cliffhanger. How could she say that Donna baked Dan Markel banana bread? First your comments, then we'll go back to it. Just a little cliffhanger, making it even more exciting for today. So, few comments. Jenny Ray says, I don't think Rashi was a good lawyer. He never objected. That's true. He did never object. He was an Adelson show pony. I'm sure Donna always had a clown for her kids' birthday parties. Rashi was just a hired clown. I don't know if I think that poorly of him. I wonder about his ethics, and I think he's just sort of an average, not great, not terrible lawyer. But as far as ethically, I find him worrisome. As we know with Donna tapes, meaning the communication between Charlie in jail and Donna Adelson outside jail. She's talking about fleeing and says Rashi says we might not make it, but it's worth a try. So he totally knew about them fleeing. And of course, they were a free person when they went to the airport. Of course, Donna was a free person. Harvey is still a free person. But that's the point of fleeing to a non-extradition country. You leave when it's still okay, just under the radar, right? Robyn Morelli, 8759, says, great show, Roberta. When I think we have picked apart every single angle in this case, you always find something that needs to be talked about and that no one else has covered. Keep doing what you do. Watching your channel has become a staple in my routine. Thank you. And Gayla Smith, 7643, says Luis Rivera was the smartest of them all. He pled guilty and would one day get out of prison, whereas Sigfredo, Katie, and Charlie will all spend the rest of their lives behind prison bars. He was. I absolutely agree. Right on for the right on with that comment. But I don't know if I have the sympathy others do in the audience for him. I find him pretty scary, and I find him so scary because of how well he comes across. He can be very likable. And he'll rob you the next minute. It's scary. I find that particularly chilling. And I wanted to show these again from Dr. Zap. These are some great stuff. Souvenir postcard from Tallahassee. Dear Harvey, how are you? I hope you're doing okay. This is insane. At least I'm in a gated community. That's, of course, means Leon County Jail. I hope you'll come and visit me sometime soon. Love, Donna. These are so great. And I know I've shown them once before, but it was at the end of an episode. And this is again from Dr. Zap. I want you dead. Here's some banana bread. And do we have another one? Hold on one hot minute. I think this is another one on Jeopardy. Charlie's the maestro. Donnie and Harvey are a team. And Wendy as Veruca Salt says, give it to me. No one can beat us. No one can beat the Adelson family. And Charlie the maestro at the end. And this is from Starkwork, Donna. And I think I'm just going to leave it here as I read her comment. So how do we know this is nonsense? How could Wendy say Donna baked him banana bread when we know Donna wasn't kosher? But she was kosher style. If Dan was as observant as people say, he would not have touched anything Donna cooked, baked, or bought if it wasn't kosher. And that woman did not have kosher pots separated for milk and meat in her house, right? So doesn't that make it even more of a crock of poop? My words, not hers. When Wendy says that, not in a million years was Dan going to eat something that Donna, I love how she spells it too, Dawhna, baked in her house if the pan wasn't kosher and the oven's not kosher, right? It's a joke. It's a total lie. Then she writes, Orthodox Jews have kitchens with two of everything, sets of plates. They're often separated by color for milk and meat, dishwasher, and ovens. Oh my God, Wendy is so full of it. I asked my friend about, and he never, okay, hold on. And it says also that if you're really kosher, I was thinking about, this would not happen. Kosher, and I learned from having a Super Bowl party in my apartment with kosher guests. It is more challenging to keep kosher than being vegan, and I thought being vegan was maybe one of the more challenging dietary challenges. And I have some links in the description. We can go over what makes your kitchen kosher. Often they will have 2 ovens, and when they don't, it's a huge process of cleaning, and you have to consult your rabbi. Your utensils have to be kosher. It's just such a huge process that it would be a very hostile gift to bake Dan banana bread. But of course, Wendy, like me, because I don't eat kosher, is not thinking of that when she's crafting a story. And I believe she crafted the story on the spot. So I want to just take a look at where she mentions this banana bread. So this is a way to diffuse Georgia Kappelman's questions surrounding all the tension between her family, her parents and brother, and Dan Markel. So when I mean brother, I mean Charlie Adelson. So let's take a look.
Ms. Adelson, you know, my parents are, very angry toward him. Is that true?
Was that
Isn't
true?
that what you said? Your parents were very angry toward Dan.
Can I read the rest of the sentence?
Sure.
So I say, my parents are very angry towards him, but even when they're around my kids, they would never say a bad word about my kid's father.
And then on page 288, line 24 through page 289, line 1, and that's going to be, didn't you say, it's like my parents have more reason to dislike Danny than almost anyone else? Is that what you said?
That is what I said.
And that's because he hurt you, right?
And I was saying that in the context of talking to law enforcement for hours and hours and trying to help them figure out who might be responsible.
Right. And who did you tell them might be responsible?
Well,
I love how Georgia Kappelman just goes, right. Right, exactly. I agree with you. Not quite the ode Wendy thought it would be there. And what makes us all so crazy about Wendy is it's such an affected, mannered performance she does on the stand.
told them many, many people. But are you asking about this particular moment right here?
You told them your family might be responsible.
Or
didn't
potentially
you?
someone to do with a former student or his current girlfriend. I mentioned lots of people that I thought could be responsible.
Okay. And of the lots of people that could have been responsible, your family was one.
Yep.
Because they might have done this thinking it would help you. I mean, that's what happened, right?
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Your family had your...
I love that when she says, I don't understand the question, when it's just her way of saying, how dare you, isn't it? That's what she really means. How dare you ask the question? Not that she doesn't understand it. So we're supposed to believe that the Magnum Cum Laude scholar can't understand the Tallahassee prosecutor's question. So it really means, how dare you? How dare you ask it?
Ex-husband killed to try to help you, didn't they?
No, that's completely untrue.
And back to the divorce, the petition where Danny is responding to your petition for the motion to relocate. Are you familiar with that filing, or do you need to take a look at it?
I need to take a look at it.
All right, it's going to be page 79 through 101, and this is back to our exhibit 56. And again, that was the filing begins on page 79. I'm specifically interested in 82. And in this filing, doesn't Mr. Markel say, quote, the husband affirmatively alleges that the wife helped herself to non-marital assets, including money and stocks owned prior to marriage, as well as numerous personal non-marital belongings of the husband, such as luggage, bicycle, tennis racket, and family heirlooms. The wife has refused to return these items or to allow the husband into her home to see what other personal belongings were taken without his permission or acquiescence. So my point is, he's accusing you of theft in this paragraph.
Those are the words that are here, yes.
Yeah, and he's very adamantly objecting to your relocation, right? On page 82, it says the sole stated reason the wife seeks to relocate is so that she can be closer to her parents. Was being near your parents the sole reason that you wanted to relocate?
No.
It wasn't the sole reason stated in your petition?
It wasn't the sole reason stated in my petition, and it wasn't the sole reason that he and I talked about before I filed the motion to relocate.
Why was he so adamant and so confident that this was the real reason you wanted to be down there?
I think there's a lot of things in these pleadings that are not true, so just because it says something doesn't make it true.
Sure, but did he know that your mom...
Just because you say something, Wendy, doesn't mean it's true.
Mom was just grinding on this issue of trying to get you down there?
He would have had no idea.
He wouldn't have been, that wouldn't have been known to him?
I don't think so.
But he was accusing you in these pleadings of all kind of stuff, right? I mean, I'm not saying it's true, but hiding financial assets, failing to disclose things, kidnapping his kids in the middle of, his business trip, all those sorts of things, right?
Yes, he said lots of things.
All right, and you said a lot of things too. There's filings going both ways that are pretty venomous. Would you agree with that?
I would not agree with that.
Yours were pleasant.
I'm not saying divorce filings are pleasant, but mine were not venomous.
Okay. Did your mother, Donna Adelson, review the filing in which Dan Markel is accusing you of this theft and all this stuff?
I don't remember if she did.
What about the one where Dan Markel is asking that your mother not be permitted to have unsupervised visitation with the kids?
My mom never saw that because after he filed that, he then asked my parents to babysit the kids. And my mom baked him banana bread, gave him a hug goodbye. So there was nothing truthful about that pleading that he filed, and my mom never saw it.
Why do you think
Yeah, I baked him banana bread. It's a wonderful recipe that brings whole families together. It's amazing. In fact, I am shipping out my banana bread to Israel right now. And they say it will cause peace in that region. I mean, what is she talking about? I really think she just made this up on the spot. I really do. I think she says whatever she can say to win at the time. And she doesn't think about what she's saying. And it's a very cult-like family. So if they say it, then they're all going to sort of repeat it as true. But that banana bread would have been a super hostile gift. Here's a gift that none of your kids should eat if they want to keep kosher and you can't eat. Great gift. Great gift. I mean, it makes like re-gifting gifts look great. Maybe you have a broken kitchen item in the back you can hand over. I mean, it's just the same thing. Totally useless. Donna Adelson left a comment. It's a little long, but I thought I'd read it. Dan Markel had Harvey Donna and Charlie too, by the cojones, my words, not Donna Adelson's, for tax stuff and insider trading. I'd love to know more about that, Donna. It wasn't just Wendy's law license at stake. There is absolutely no way Harvey wasn't involved. I think he's a major player, despite CD, Charlie, Donna, and Wendy trying to make it sound like he's missing his marbles. Maybe that is Harv's strategy to keep himself out of jail. Is he incompetent to go to trial? It didn't seem like it the night Donna was arrested. Apparently, Harvey and Wendy are the only ones who are able to keep their mouths shut. Charlie and Donna couldn't do it. They compulsively want to talk about the hit regarding the bump. Donna clearly tried to stop Charlie from asking questions, and he wouldn't do it. On later call, when Charlie asks if Dad knows and Donna says no, I think it's because of Harvey's temper. And that comes out in the tips that he's threatened people. They know, or that was a tip called in. They know Harvey will be furious because they are constantly blabbing. Their blabbing is going to get them all arrested. There's no way Harvey wouldn't know about the humongous sums of money going out of his business accounts. Yeah, I'm really confused as to when the business was sold. It seems to go back and forth between Charlie and Harvey. They also probably have accountants doing taxes on their two main multi-million-dollar dental practice. Harvey must be a financial genius since approximately 10 years before the hit, he lost everything and Wendy went to college on full scholarship. He'd have some excuse ready for that hole in the profits. I love how in Donna's last phone call to Charlie, she says they'll both unalive themselves. They had a good marriage. They traveled. They had their cemetery plots. I guess Harv wasn't willing to go that far. Hence the one-way ticket to Vietnam. Harvey is not a frail old man. I know men his age who are smart as a whip. The Adelsons are a sad, cautionary tale of narcissism and ego. They had everything and threw it all away because they just couldn't let go of having their fifis feelings hurt. Morally bankrupt, doesn't even close to covering how awful this family is. Yeah. Good, great points. Great points. So there's the origin of the banana bread. So, it's just, it doesn't really matter how much evidence you have. The filings are available. Wendy herself admits she drove by the crime scene or up to the crime scene, but she'll still deny it. And if you listen, it's very interesting to listen to the calls between Charlie and Donna because they're both so narcissistic. And I really think being antisocial personalities, and I would include Wendy in that, is that they can't admit any fault. Remember the family motto is Charlie's never wrong because Charlie's always right, or maybe the other way around, according to Robert. So it's all Wendy's fault. Wendy drove by the crime scene. Wendy bought Bullet bourbon or Bullet rye whiskey. Any average person, she's the reason why I'm in trouble, why I'm convicted. Because I had a great defense. I was 95% on the stand. It's everyone else's fault. Barb Nauman says, I saw banana bread at Trader Joe's and burst out laughing. I'm never going to be able to make it or buy it again. Thanks, Donna. Yeah, because you see banana bread and you think starts with an M, ends with an R, right? I mean, it's wild. I think right? I don't think anybody's ever going to look at banana bread the same way. Thanks, Wendy. Why banana bread? Why not some other, and thank you, Barb. Why not some other confection? Do you guys have questions about kosher eating, or how curious are you? Because I have a lot of stuff on it, but I don't know how curious you are about. Here, I'll show you just for a second. If you get bored of this, let me know. But I just wanted to show you a woman showing off her kosher kitchen. And
Giving you a tour of my kosher kitchen, I wanted to explain what makes a kitchen kosher.
So the link is in the description, but it really gets good when she gets to the stove. So just to prove my point, or really Starkworks' point, there's no way that this is true. So look how organized and clean. This woman makes me feel like such a such a slob. And here's the oven, just the stove alone.
This is our gas stove. I'm so excited to have this. In my previous home, if you've seen any of my videos, we had an electric stove and it was fine, it did the job, but I do definitely love my gas stove. I picked this up just to show you. This oven came with this attachment, and I can only use this for either milk or meat. I cannot use this attachment for both. So I chose to leave this for dairy. So I make my pancakes here and my eggs, especially when all the kids are usually lined up on a Sunday for breakfast. I make a whole big batch of pancakes or eggs or omelets on here, and I usually store this on the bottom of my oven. So, but otherwise, this entire stovetop can be used for either meat or dairy, but this attachment can't. This oven is an oven that I only use for meat stuff, so I make my chicken, my meat, my fish in here as well. I won't make any sorts of pizzas or lasagnas in here. If I want to make anything dairy, I will do that in my oven right behind me. But it is totally possible to use your oven for both meat and dairy with the process of.
It's totally possible, but not easy. So if you want to fully clean your oven, you have to wait 24 hours. Sometimes you have to bury dishes, bury things. Other times it's hot water. Other times it's bringing over a rabbi to make sure it's all done properly. It takes intense commitment to be, you have to be really committed to being kosher. And since Wendy was not on board, and I think that's really the message for the wedding, is I'm not on board with this. Get used to it. And she had already broken up with him once before they got married. So it's really on both parties to work it out. And it became a power struggle between the two. So you really have to be on board. Even on smaller things like one person's a vegetarian or one person's a vegan, which is not comparable to being kosher, it can break up marriages. It can break up relationships. The way people eat can become a real source of stress. And if you're working, or even if you're raising kids, this is a big workload to keep a kitchen kosher and cook this way. You want to see a little bit more? I'll show you.
Koshering it in between. Some rabbis say that it's enough to just, well, I'm not going to get into it. Everyone should ask their rabbi how to properly use one oven for milk and meat, because I was never lucky enough to have two ovens. I'm just blessed right now that I'm able to have it. I was married for 16 years with no two ovens, and I managed just fine. Also, my parents didn't have two ovens, and actually they still don't have two ovens. They have to make do with one oven. So you don't have to be fancy schmancy to be able to have dairy and meat work for you with one oven. It is definitely doable, so please consult your rabbi as to how you can actually use the same oven for both milk and meat.
Right next to my stove is one of my favorite cabinets. It's my spice drawer. I totally enjoyed putting this together, and I did include this.
I mean, this woman seems to love cleaning and organizing. That's what her whole channel is about. So it wasn't too hard for her, but she's a organizing, cleaning guru. I'm sorry, I fail I fail way short of this woman. So just a little some interesting factoids. You know, the dishes have to be kept separate, the silverware, you have to have separate silverware. This is a whole thing. So this whole thing about kosher style, please explain how, unless they had Nathan's hot dogs, and how that would satisfy. I'd love to ask Wendy about that. And I'm sad that Wendy was never really asked when she asserted that the food at her wedding was kosher style. So of course it was Dan's fault that he just didn't understand. At a fancy wedding, and she wore a strapless, I believe, if I'm remembering right, wedding gown. That's what I remember. Am I wrong? So it's a pretty fancy wedding. You're not going to have deli food at your wedding unless she's serving deli food. That's the only thing that's kosher style. It was invented for Nathan's hot dogs. And tell me how a rabbi would be thrilled to say, oh, well, it's a Jewish company making non-kosher food, so I'll be okay. But no, this is a real, people who eat kosher are really committed. And it was a real issue in their marriage. It could have been worked out, as Ruth Markel said in the interview I did with her, but it would have been difficult. And there's an article I linked in this episode's description if you want to read more about it. So, do you guys want to see more Wendy, or should I just cut it short? I think I'm feeling, what are we at? We're at about 32 minutes. I think that's good for today, right? Do you guys have any questions? I thought her wedding dress, Sherry, was my memory, but I may be wrong, was strapless. Am I wrong? No, it wasn't. No? Okay. Thank you. Correct me. More Wendy? Okay. A little bit more Wendy on the stand talking about all this issue with her mama. Hold on one sec. Please hold, guys. Strapless is what Lolly saw too? Okay. It was really in style then when they got married. You saw almost nothing but strapless wedding dresses at that time. Hold. Okay.
The testimony you're about to give will be true.
Okay. So we were about here.
So he didn't really want to limit your mom's visitation with the kids.
No.
And that's evidence
to babysit after he filed that.
Evidenced by the banana bread. And so she didn't even know about it.
So even Georgia Kappelman can't stop but make fun of it. She's like, oh, so everything was okay. And those filings and those emails where Donna comes off as a junior trial assistant or something, going through all the different ways that she could deal with the judge by becoming Christian. It would help her. She's a black Christian lady, and it would help Wendy and her kids to be Christian. Also to dress up the kids in SS outfits, to take pictures in front of a church. And there's so much projection in those emails.
About that filing.
She never knew about it.
Okay. And when she laid all those options out in that email to you about other options that you could take to secure the relocation, as far as bribing, remember that? Converting the Christian children to Christianity, remember that suggestion?
I sure do.
Okay. What did she put in there that she viewed as your most non-negotiable and most important part of your divorce?
I don't know. Do you have something I can see?
States Exhibit 57.
So this is a technique that witnesses use when they don't want to answer it. Specifically savvy witnesses. Dr. Elizabeth Loftus. So she's been a defense witness. She wrote a book called Witness for the Defense for Robert Durst. She either was a witness or she consulted with the defense on Ted Bundy, the Night Stalker, Menendez case, O.J. Simpson, Harvey Weinstein, Jerry Sandusky, who she still keeps in touch with, still writes them the letters, Tim Hennis. She does this. So if she doesn't want to answer a question, she'll say, I don't know, I don't remember. Can I see it? So she's hoping that the prosecutor won't have the evidence handy. But Georgia Kappelman is so on the ball. That's why we love her. It doesn't slow her down a bit.
And it is page 1. Page 1, paragraph 2.
So you want me to read what she said here?
I want you to answer the question. What was the most important part?
Of the divorce for my mom.
Yes.
It says here that for her it was relocation.
All right. And did you have 2 8-hour mediations?
Wendy, it was relocation. That was the most important thing for my daughter. Not location, relocation.
In your divorce?
We had 2 very long mediations. I don't remember exactly how long they were, but they
Did
felt
they
like a very
result
long
in a
time.
resolution?
No.
Was Mr. Markel seeking to depose your mom as part of the divorce?
I don't remember that.
Do you know if it ever happened?
I don't think it happened. I don't remember it.
Was the prospect of that upsetting to your mom?
I don't think so. I don't remember it, so I don't remember talking with her about it or...
Did your mom call Dan any disparaging names around this time?
So speaking of Elizabeth Loftus, the memory expert who often doesn't remember anything on the stand, I saw her testify for Ghislaine Maxwell for the defense, and Ghislaine Maxwell, she was one of 2 witnesses for Ghislaine Maxwell, is that the idea of memory, traumatic memory. So Wendy says, I was so traumatized by my ex-husband, Dan Markel's murder, that around those memories, we remember things during that time, sometimes very vividly. They lock in. So it makes her claims of not remembering this time leading up to his murder very difficult to believe. And also it's the fact that we remember them. We know about this. Of course, our focus is a little different. We're not living her life, but it's so performative. It's so put on, her testimony. It's really hard to believe.
Time frame?
Well, I just read them in the emails, but I
Okay.
don't remember them independently.
Okay. Did she call him an asshole?
Yes.
A narcissist?
Yes.
A bully?
Yes.
Religious zealot?
Yes.
Bastard?
That I don't remember.
Page 5.
Okay. Is it page 5 from the first email?
Yes, if you'll just go through by the physical pages.
I see, yes.
I'm sorry, what was your answer?
Yes.
Fucker?
Yes.
But in all the filings made on your behalf by the different lawyers that you had, and all of the emails that your mom sent, he was never described as abusive.
I mean, he was described as emotionally abusive, yes.
Can you show me where he was described as emotionally abusive in any of those items?
Well, not by my mom, but in the pleadings.
Okay, show me that.
It's going to take me a while to find it.
Okay, well, it's
You want me
not
to-
in there, but you can get back to me
Well,
with
it is in there.
Objection, Your Honor. The comment, she's not testifying.
Hold on, please approve.
So would you have to review the whole file in order to find that, or could you give us a starting point of which filing it might be located in?
It might be under the petition to relocate. It might be under the initial divorce proceedings.
Okay.
It wouldn't be in emails from my mom, but it would take a while to find it. It might be in the depositions.
Okay, did you view yourself as being stuck here in Tallahassee once the relocation was denied?
So what I mean when I say Donna is projecting is she never says Dan Markel wants to raise his kids kosher because he deeply believes in his faith. He wants to work this out because it's upsetting between Wendy, because it's upsetting to the kids. He wants to have supervised visitations because it's disruptive to his family life to have Donna disparage him and have the kids repeat it back to him. It's hurtful and disruptive. No, she always says it's Dan wants control. And that's really what Donna wanted, control. And she wanted the kids when they were the age that she liked. It's like getting a puppy when they're cute. And now she doesn't seem to have so much interest in them. She was willing to totally abandon them and go to Vietnam. And someone else pointed out that on her Wheel of Fortune appearance, she never mentions Wendy. And I had to go back. Wendy was clearly born then, but she says she has 2 sons, and she mentions the dog Sam, but not Wendy. Why not? Was there issues, or did she present to the? Did she not want to say she had a smaller child at home to the people who were casting the show? I have no idea. Does anyone have any idea why that is? Let me know in the comments.
I didn't. I mean, I had a really nice life here. I did not view myself as being stuck.
Would you please turn to page 176 in that exhibit in front of you? I think it's highlighted for you.
So is it cut out of the version I have? Is that it? Here, hold on. I'll show you guys. Hold on one second. We'll come back to this. Hold on one sec. So I want to show you. This is the version I have. I hope I have it hooked up here. Hold on. Here it is.
Donna Adelson from Coral Springs, Florida. I want to hear all about you, Donna. Let's go.
Well, I'm a domestic coordinator.
A domestic coordinator.
Yes. I'm responsible for the activities, classes, and lessons of my son Robert, who is 16, Charlie, who is 12, Wendy, who is 10, my husband Harvey, who's in the audience, and my dog Sam.
All right. And how?
I am wrong. I watched that so many times. Thanks, guys. I'm wrong. I've listened to it. Maybe I cut it out. I don't know. I just think I didn't hear it. Wow. Thank you, guys.
Did you describe yourself in that filing as being stuck in Tallahassee?
I don't see it. You said it was highlighted, but there's nothing highlighted.
Okay. 176 on page. I didn't highlight it for you. Okay. Just a moment.
I see the word stuck. I found it.
Okay. So did you describe, at least in one occasion, being stuck in Tallahassee?
No, can I read the sentence?
Sure.
So it says, the husband has made it difficult for the wife with her colleagues at her current position due to his statements and actions, and the husband's intent is to relocate to a larger area at some point. So the wife is merely stuck in Tallahassee until the husband decides that the time is right for him to leave.
All right.
Meaning,
and had he accepted a job anywhere else by the time that he was murdered?
no, he hadn't yet been offered a job, but he was always looking.
Okay. So he was just going to move and just let you have the kids at that point?
He probably would have done what I did, which is have a conversation and see if it was a place that made sense for both of us to live.
And would you have moved to wherever he got a great job and started a new life there?
Potentially, yeah.
Okay. Did you like Tallahassee?
I did.
And you said, I think you did say this, but let me clarify. Was your mom aware of the order denying relocation?
My mom was aware of the order denying relocation.
And what about your brother, Charlie? Was he aware of that as well?
I'm sure my mom would have said something to him.
All right, so did your mom suggest any ways that you might coerce Dan Markel to let you move with the kids to South Florida?
Yes, I think we talked about that before.
We did, and for this I'm referring back to those emails. And in particular, the bribe. So another bribe to get him to allow relocation. I'm on page 5 of the first email for the defense. Another bribe to get him to allow relocation should be the offer of plane tickets so that he can fly back and forth, right? So you're going to potentially...
My mom was so great. If you haven't listened to that episode, she says it never occurs to them that they might fly. So it's so in the Adelson world that everything be arranged for them. They have it the way they like it and that they win. And as Dr. Zapp just pointed out in the comments, very much like Wendy's testimony, she just wants to win. It's like a battle. And Charlie's testimony was very much the same. They just want to battle it out and win. It's a family who loves to win, goes on game shows. And any kind of loss they don't take it well. And Dan Markel was not going to be walked over. And he was prepared to work very hard to get a resolution to this that he wanted too. So I mean, just two very strong personalities fighting it out. But can you imagine? I just want to know how it happened. So if you don't get this relocation, how did they decide that the best plan was to rob Wendy's children of a father? If I had to guess, I would think the final straw was threatening Wendy's law license and threatening Donna's ego. And so much of her ego is connected with being a mother and a grandmother. Having supervised visitations would have been humiliating for her. But how did they all decide? So Wendy, when you don't get this relocation, we can always just pay someone to just, get him off this planet. I just want to know how that went down. And I can almost picture it in my head with Charlie kind of pacing in the back and everyone sitting in the living room. That's how I picture it. Let me know what you think happened.
Offer this big monetary benefit that would allow him to fly back and forth to work. Is that the idea?
I never said that I was going to do any of that.
Okay, was that the idea that your mom had?
That was the idea.
All right, and the amount of the bribe is going to be, or was at least discussed as being $1 million. Is that right?
That is what they said.
Okay, and did you agree with that?
No.
Would that have worked?
I have no idea if it would have worked, but...
You think he might have taken $1 million to let his kids go?
Well, he wasn't letting his kids go. He would have moved to South Florida, and he would have commuted back and forth to his job. So, maybe.
Well, then why wasn't it offered?
because I didn't want to do it.
All right, what about the idea that you could...
Because it would not have been looked well upon. It wouldn't have made Wendy and Wendy's family look good to have done that in her field and in her life. Not because she didn't want to, not because she didn't think better of it. I love how she's basically saying, I'm too moral. I would just never do any of these shady things, but I will get a hoax alibi. I will drive by the crime scene. I will give contradicting stories under oath with immunity, even though I'm an officer of the court, just to win temporarily. But Donna's trial cannot come soon enough, and I'm just so curious the way this is going to end. If Donna is going to be the last of it, or if Wendy's going to get promptly arrested. I mean, what if Wendy gets arrested in the same way that Donna did a week after the trial? She's tried to board a flight to some other non-extradition country. That would be incredible. Well, those tapes would be amazing. Oh, please, make it happen.
Try to threaten Dan to convert the kids to Christianity so that they can fit into the Bible Belt here in Tallahassee. Is that something your mom suggested in these emails?
My mom did suggest that.
Okay, and specifically, this is on page 7 of the exhibit. Let Jibbers know that your children will be baptized in the Catholic Church. Have a picture made of them in front of the church, all that kind of thing. That's what your mom suggested at one time?
She did, yes.
Okay, and did you do any of those things?
No, I don't even think I responded to it.
Do you know whether the defendant, your brother Charlie, was supportive of the plan to convert them or pose as converting them to Christianity?
I have no idea. I don't think he was particularly involved in this round of my mom's emails.
On page 11 of the exhibit, there's an indication from your mom that Charlie at least has discussed this with her and maybe is somewhat supportive. Charlie brought up a good point when he said that Americans were dropped behind enemy lines during World War II wearing Nazi uniforms to get what they wanted. They had a job to get done, and they did what they needed to do to accomplish it. You have a job to get done in a very short time frame to accomplish it. If you dressed your kids up in Hitler youth uniforms and brought them down here, I could care less if it was an act of defiance that would show Jibbers that he's, all caps and bold, not in control. So it just seems like your mom was pretty extreme about this situation of getting you relocated. Can you agree with that?
Yeah.
All right, and Charlie was at least consulted on it or had offered some information about it.
Well, that was my mom's rendition, so I don't know if that's what actually happened or that was her perception.
Sure.
And that's one of the more amazing things in this case, that parents would pass down such bad values to their kids. So when Robert returned change that wasn't right to the cashier, they all made fun of him endlessly for it. Why would you do that? So that's being, in my view, that's being a sucker. And she says to Wendy in these emails, you're not a manipulative person, but you need to be for now. It's just an act. You're just doing an act. Just like these soldiers did. You're in a war. And yet here's Wendy on the stand saying, it wasn't too bad. It was all worked out. Things were really good. We were all singing Kumbaya right before July 18th, 2014. And holding hands, and it's like passing the peace pipe. It's like passing the banana bread. This is just some wild stuff. This is so she'll be like, oh, that moment passed. But they insist that Robert marry a Jewish woman to disastrous results, which is so weird, so important to them, but only to be a kind of much more moderate Jew, right? Only in such a weird thing because it's a religion and yet it's also an national. Is that right? Nationality? Is that the right word?
Were you involved in the effort to consult a lawyer about the bribe and whether that was going to be legal?
I wasn't the lawyer consulted in that.
No. Were you involved in consulting a lawyer with your mom? Okay. Do you know for sure if any financial offer was or was not made to Dan Markel?
I couldn't say for sure if they made it to Danny without me knowing, but I don't think so.
Is that something they would do, is try to negotiate with him behind your back or deal with this situation behind your back?
I don't think so. I think I would have known. Danny probably would have told me.
But you definitely didn't extend any of these offers or threats?
No.
When was the divorce final?
The summer of 2013.
All right, I'm going to switch gears for a minute and talk about phone stuff. Was your cell phone collected by the police in this case after Dan was shot?
I gave the police my cell phone and asked them to search it if it could be useful.
All right.
And I've been talking to Murder by Maestro about this, and he really knows a lot about Cellbrite and how they can track phones and how this information and cars. He just released another video about how they can track your car in the Ohio Brian Kohberger's case, Ohio murders case. So the technology is really going fast. So if you notice, the warrant goes all the way back when they went in for Donna and Harvey's stuff. And the way that Donna was holding on to her phone when she was arrested. Thanks, the society page. Thanks for becoming a member. I appreciate it. The way the technology is going so fast. And Georgia has hinted that she has other evidence against Wendy, so stay tuned. But that is the tale of the banana bread. Just going to leave the way I always do when I'm talking about the Dan Markel case with a victim impact statement. And I wanted to share one of my favorite ones. This won't be a surprise to the regular listeners of my channel, but this is one of my more favorites. This is from Adam Berger and Stephen Frank. And I assume this is written 2019. Dear Judge Hankinson, in Jewish tradition, there is a legend that someone who successfully matches 3 people with their future spouse earns a place in heaven. There are various explanations for this story. One is that God matched Adam with Eve so that bringing spouses together is doing God's work. In a life cut far too short, Dan Markel made 2 successful matches. We are one of them. And I've read the other match. We've each met Dan in the first few days of college. Adam lived 2 flights below Dan in his freshman dorm. Steve met Dan through his own freshman roommate. For each of us, our first conversations with him stand out in our memory. He wanted to know everything about us, where we grew up, how many siblings we had, what their names were, what our interests were, what we wanted to do with our lives. In the space of a few hours, it seemed as though he knew everything about us. He remembered all of it. We each built strong, independent friendships with Dan, but he didn't actually introduce us until near the end of that first year in college. It certainly wasn't with the goal of making a match. That was the early 90s. Both of us were deeply in the closet, and the notion that we could be a couple was the furthest thing from our minds. But Dan somehow sensed that we would be great friends, and it was with that in mind that he brought us together. Over the next couple of years, the three of us became an inseparable group. Senior year, we all lived together, and we remained in close touch after graduation, even as Dan went off to Israel and then England on postgraduate graduate fellowships. Steve went to study in Germany, and Adam moved back to New York City. It was in that year, 1996, that the two of us finally became a couple. We have been together ever since. We remember the joy on Dan's face when we shared our news. We were, of course, nervous about telling him how would he react to the fact that two of his closest friends were gay and dating each other. But for Dan, the fact that we found happiness was all that mattered, and he thought it was hilarious. He had quite literally matched Adam and Steve. At our wedding in 2006, Dan danced and celebrated with unbridled enthusiasm. He was part of a small crew who lifted our chairs and held them aloft as we celebrated another Jewish tradition. On the video, which we have watched again and again in the years since his death, you can see his happiness. This is how we will remember him. Over the next few years, with our lives centered in New York and his in Tallahassee, we saw less of Dan. Still, our friendship endured as we each welcomed children into our lives. One of our last visits with Dan was in Cambridge in May 2013. We had just moved here to take new jobs, and Dan's visit coincided with our oldest son's 4th birthday party, which meant we didn't have much time to spend with him. But he joined the party, mingling with the other preschool parents and having a grand time, even though he didn't know anybody, and the occasion was marked by sing-alongs and cupcakes rather than grown-up conversation. Dan took so much pride in the fact that we had children because for him, children were life's greatest gift. Dan's love for his 2 boys was obvious and overwhelming. It defined him. They were the central focus of his life. One of the greatest tragedies of Dan's death is that those boys are now being raised by the very people who conspired to have him murdered and who are working every day to erase his memory from their lives. We hope they do not succeed. We always imagined we would have Dan with us over the decades, challenging us and cheering us as we moved through the stages of our lives. We expected more visits, more meals, more stories. We look forward to telling our kids how Dan brought us together and telling Dan's kids silly stories about his college hijinks. We look forward to one day comparing notes with Dan as our children started college and formed adult friendships of their own, and perhaps attending the weddings of each other's children. None of this will come to pass. Nor did Dan ever have the chance to make his 3rd match, though we have little doubt he would have. But as abbreviated as Dan's life was, we know that God saw the light in his beautiful soul and how hard Dan worked to repair our broken world. We know that Dan earned his place in heaven. Dan's academic study was justice, a topic that was at the core of his being. Writing about justice fused his passion for Jewish study, his instinctive sense of right and wrong, and his love of argument and debate. as well as his delight in taking provocative stands. It saddens us beyond measure that the subject to which Dan devoted his academic life now hangs over his death like an inescapable shadow. Will there be justice in our lifetimes for Dan? Will there be appropriate punishment for the people responsible for taking the life of our friend? Will there be some consequence that deters others from committing such heinous crimes? We ask Your Honor to do everything in your power to answer those questions with a definitive yes. Sincerely, Adam L. Berger and Stephen E. Frank. Oh, thanks so much, Sherry, because you stayed longer. Oh, my pleasure. I am going to stay even longer. I'm just going to take a short break. I'll be back in 25 minutes with an episode on the Rust trial. Stay tuned. Thanks so much for listening. Please hit the thumbs up, share this episode, subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave me a 5-star review. And I'll see you tomorrow back here again at 6 p.m. Eastern. But I'll see you even sooner than that on this channel in 25 minutes. All right. Have a great one, everybody. Thanks for listening.